every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Welcome to the John Schultz podcast. Look, how excited should I be looking at the Jersey Shore with a Jersey guy who started with his co-founder, an amazing company, Rob Giuliani. Welcome to the podcast. It's the co-founder of Playa Bowls, which we love, has a cult following. And he founded it with Abby Taylor, 2014. And they launched it in front of a pizzeria in Belmar, which I frequented when I was younger and still do. Love that town. It's an amazing town. Their first storefront in 2015, then started franchising in 2016. And, you know, many years later, with lots of hard work, grinding it out, creating the best culture I think you could possibly create with a brand, has over 200 locations. So excited you're here. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so glad we're finally able to do this.
Yes,
so
sir.
I want to, my podcast is The Myth of Overnight Success. I always feel learning about someone when they're young and what they go through, you can sort of feel and see why they done what they've done. So we're going to go all the way back to, I know you have a lot of friends. Like, how would your friends describe you growing up as a young Rob?
Well, if we're being completely honest, I would use the word savage. I mean, I'm just like, I'm always go. It's go, go, go. I mean, I never do anything halfway. And I think my friends know that about me and they appreciate it. Even to this current day. I mean, they still see me involved with Playa Bowls and even like the other endeavors I've gotten involved with in the past year or two. They're like, dude, isn't Playa Bowls enough for you? I'm like, no, it's never enough. I was like, we got to keep going. And for me, it's not about the money. And I know that might sound like a load of BS because, what do you get into business for? Which is certainly a part of it for me, but it's more about just the drive and having fun doing things and, keep going. But on that note, I mean, my friends, the funny little, thing that goes between us is when I started this little car at the side of the road, which is right behind me, I asked them all to invest with me 10 years ago. They all made fun of me. They called it a lemonade stand, and now they all want in.
No, it's good. And I know you're still friendly with all your friends. You're just that type of person. You never lose touch. You care about people in such a strong way. And listen, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, as we know, but you need people around you and mentors. So you've always reached out for that and you've always never been afraid to ask for help, which is great.
Yeah.
So, what inspired? I mean, I know you love to surf, you love outdoors. I think you've created a pretty cool balance. But what inspired you to want to do Playa Bowls? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's funny going back to my Seaside Heights day where I'd work on the boardwalk, Lucky Leo's, and I was a Jersey Shore guy, and I always saw people making money at the Jersey Shore, and obviously I'm a frequent goer. I've lived up here my whole entire life, and I just said to myself, I want to get involved with this. I don't want to work at these frog bog stands anymore, or work on the boardwalk, or work at the pizzerias. I want to start something. And to your, you were right. It did start with the love of surfing and traveling the world, and I kind of combined the two. I said, holy cow. The lightning bulb went off coming back to the Jersey Shore after a long trip in Costa Rica. And I'm like, there's nothing healthy on the Jersey Shore. And boom, light bulb hit up. Back to my Seaside Heights day, knowing that, Midway Steakhouse and, Sawmill Pizza and Three Brothers Pizza. I'm like, let's go. I was like, let's put a little cart on the side of the road. Let's serve the Jersey Shore something healthy for the first time in probably history. So that's kind of really how the brainstorm idea came.
And, you had a lot going on prior to that, right? You from high school, you joined the military.
Yeah.
Then you got into sales and, obviously you could just see by how you're talking to us now, you would get people excited about anything you do. But how did some of those experiences shape you, like the military? How did that shape you as an entrepreneur? What did you learn from that?
Yeah, every instance in my life through every time frame gave me something different and new, from like, my pledging a fraternity at Rutgers, learning how to get like a brotherhood there and becoming friends with people. But Air Force, I mean, the biggest takeaway from Air Force for me was just my attention to detail. Being in the Air Force for 9 years, going to boot camp, tech school, fixing KC-135 airplanes, and like every little detail mattered on that plane. And if you miss one little thing, obviously it's a matter of life and death. So kind of carry that over to Pliables too, the little cart on the side of the road. Like, we weren't making money in the beginning. And I sat there and I was like, I kept thinking, like, what details am I missing here? We'd move the signage just, 5 feet over. I'd angle it differently. I'd have the blenders running with ice in them, even though there was nothing in there, just to draw attention to our little cart on the side of the road. And all these little attention to detail things that I kept thinking of really started attracting the crowds and attracting the customers to Pliables because they didn't know what we were.
But okay, so you're saying maybe the military, just your experience of not giving up, iterating, learning how to sort of focus on an issue and not let it sort of get away from you. Did that help? And how did that with your co-founder Abby? Like, how did you guys work together in a way to make it from just a stand to that first store?
I you know, listen. I'm a huge proponent of teamwork. We always had this phrase at Pliables. We still do. Teamwork makes the dream work. I know it's corny, but like, I was the one. I was up till 4 or 5 in the morning every night during that time, from the social media. Getting followers in the area, thinking of ways to make our little thing better for the next day, to bring more people to that cart. And if I didn't do that, it was waking up in the morning, putting the umbrella up, and having a team of people behind me that, begrudgingly sometimes I'd ask them to do things, and they're like, "Rob, are you crazy?" I'm like, "Yeah, a little bit." Like, we would, print out little Staples cards that, 1,000 of them would go on the beach every day, and like basically just go up and cold call all the drunk, hungover kids from DJs the night before and explain to them, this shit is going to make you feel 10 times better. You look like hell right now eating acai bowl. They're like, okay, that sounds good. And like, that's what it was. And it was just a grind. It was like guerrilla marketing 101.
I love it. No, I read about that, and it's like it's just doing anything that you need to do to get the word out, right? And listen, yeah, good thing is social media was in play in a bigger way when you started
Oh,
this.
yeah.
But what was your biggest challenge from that cart to the first store? Because listen, I mean, I'm not saying a cart doesn't cost any money, but once you get to that first store, you got real estate, rent, construction, leases, more
Yeah.
people to supply to the store to make it work. Like, what was your biggest challenges? No, being that you never did it before, and how did you and Abby, figure that out?
I mean, nothing that we did was orthodox at Pliable. So like that little cart on the side of the road, we anchored to the pizzeria using, their health department certification, and we did it all right. The health department would come out, and we used the pizzeria's 3 compartment sink. We used all their sanitation things to get approved for it. So like, for me, that was hard. It was unorthodox because we had to literally sit there and rely on somebody else to make sure that our business was working all the time. And then the transition from that cart into the storefront, again, unorthodox. We had a friend in town that basically gave us this Belmar building, which I'm sitting in front of right now, because he planned on redeveloping it in like 5, 7 years, going through variances. So in his mind, he liked us, he liked me, he liked Abby. He said, "Hey guys, why don't you just take the building until we do so? No rent, so on and so forth." And I was like, all right, this sounds pretty cool. Until I opened the front doors to this. It was Belmar Gym for 10, 15 years. Hurricane Sandy hit. I opened up the 2 front doors, and there was probably like 7 squirrels running through the ceiling. Every copper pipe was busted. And I brought my buddy, who's a construction guy, to price it out for me, to like say, hey, what's it going to take to get this store up and running? And it was like another blow. He was like, dude, he's like, you're talking like 70, 80,000 bucks. And at that time, I think I had like maybe $700 in my savings account. I'm like, how am I going to get this done? But again, you said in the beginning of this podcast, like, I reached out to my mentors. I reached out to people that have done business before. I said, what do you think I should do? I didn't just give up right there. I come from a construction background. I worked on union jobs. I have a lot of friends that are union construction workers, plumbing, carpenters. I reached out to them and I pulled all the strings that I could, and we got this thing built in 17 days before 4th of July weekend, 2015. Begrudgingly to the building department. I remember when the building inspector came here at 7 in the morning, he was like, no way this happened. And we did it all right. We got the inspections, but it was cool. We opened up the day before 4th of July, July 3rd, and we had a line down the road. And that was kind of like that was the next step. That was like, all right, we're going to start going more serious and crushing it with this concept.
It's great. And you have, all right. And brands come and go, small businesses, if you really look at the track record, most don't survive after 5 years, right? Here
Yeah.
you are with an idea of something that, obviously you may not want to eat it every day if you don't really taste it, right? You may look at it, you may say, I'll try it once, but you created a culture. Because I can go to a lot of places and eat something, but there's certain places that you go because you feel good about going. How are you able to create this culture? And I know you say culture is better than location. And you know what? You need both, but you only survive with the other because a location can come and go if no one goes there, right? So how did you create this feeling? Because that's what it is.
What a loaded question that is, John, because I can honestly keep, going on this podcast for 6 months to explain what it is, because we've had competition that has tried doing what we have done through the Acai Bowls. And I always said, in the beginning, I handled it a different way. I think I've matured a little bit when it comes to competition, but I've always said it. I've said it on other podcasts. I've said it in a lot of interviews. There's a mixture of things. And to define what culture is, you can't really teach it. It just becomes something within the four walls of your business. The way that we played the music, the way that I set up the back line, the way that I decorated the stores, the way that we painted the walls, it's a combination of things. And really, like I said, it's the people, it's the ambiance in here. And then most importantly, it's the quality of our products. So you kind of have that trifecta that all came together. And you always had competition that I watch it from a mile away. They always miss one, two, sometimes three of those things. And I'm like, well, that's why you're not pliables. And I think that's why a lot of the brands, to your point, they die before 5 years. Brands like Chipotle, brands like Starbucks that we see, they're always reinventing themselves. They're always looking at the competition and not taking ideas from them, but maybe getting a brainstorm from another business out there that has, like Starbucks has the refreshers now, the pitaya, the acai, and they might have gotten that from us. I don't know. But at the end of the day, they took it and they're doing a great job with it. You're watching a lot of Gen Zs walk into Starbucks now and they're buying iced coffees, they're buying all these refreshing drinks. And Starbucks is back, and they're absolutely crushing it. So for Pliables, that was a huge knock that I got in the very beginning. For the first, I call it 3 to 5 years, from business people said, do you think this is a trend or a fad, Rob? And my line back to them all the time was, yeah, it could be a trend or a fad if I let it be, but I'm not going to let it be. And that's the most important thing. How do we do that? We got different types of customers in here. I see a lot of construction workers come into our store in the morning, guys that are in their 30s, 40s. I'm watching families come in here now. And if I had a nickel for every time I said, a father says to me, oh, my daughter loves pliables. But now I've got guys that are like, oh, my daughter loves pliables, but I love it just as much. So that's the evolution of what pliables is coming. And I think it still has a lot more legs behind it.
Well, and I love the word authentic, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
You and Abby are so authentic to this brand. Just looking at you now with your hat turned back and your shades with umbrellas behind you.
I didn't do this on purpose.
You've never left what you are as for why you and Abby started this. And I get it, but now you did really well in this first store because we know you did. People started understanding it that we're in that area, but then it's a big difference to scale anything. So my question to you is, what was the challenge you guys felt? Because franchising to corporate stores is a big difference, where you started franchising, and most people don't so soon after. you opened your first flagship store, which is still there, right? Which is amazing.
Yep.
What was the process of that? What were your thoughts, and why did you go in that direction? What were the challenges?
Uh, going back to what you said about authenticity, from myself to Abby and being Jersey Shore kids, surfers, like when we heard the word franchise, it was like this. We're like, whoa, franchise. We're like, no way, nerds, cop out. And that's when I was like in my early 30s. And like we had another partner in the beginning. That was my buddy from Rutgers University. And he went to Rutgers Business School and he pushed me on it. He pushed Abby on it because he saw the opportunity of franchising of Flyballs. I didn't see it. I was like, no, I'm not going to franchise this. I'm going to build 4 more stores on the Jersey Shore, keep going that way. But I started learning more about the franchising model. And, I made a deal with my old partner. I said, if you do X, Y, and Z, I'll give you X, Y, and Z, but you have to get it done for us because I won't be able to. I don't have that sort of savviness when it comes to getting these contracts done and getting an FDD and hiring a franchise attorney. He did it, and he did it very, very quick for us, which I appreciate and I'll never forget it because it was obviously one of the best moves that Pliable's made going into the franchising because now, fast forward 280 stores. I don't know the exact number, but several different groups of franchising groups right now, from my brother to friends and family. They're the ones who built Bibles. I mean, yes, Rob and Abby are a big part of the brand and it's authentic, but without our franchisees, there's no way this would have been what it is right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And, I'll take credit. We will take credit that we picked the right franchisees, but once they came into this system and talk about culture and how much they love this brand, they built it. It was like it was like a machine. They came into Pliables and we started watching them build it with us. But
I love it. Love
now
it.
the next challenge though is you get to 280 locations. We can't do what we used to do. Like I used to give franchisees full carte blanche to go out and hey, create something different in the store. Serve this product or everybody does something different. It was unorthodox once again, but now we're bigger and now it has to be more standard throughout the entire organization. Still little touches here and there, but not like it used to be.
It's interesting. I just and I hope everyone caught this with what you said, that you weren't afraid to ask for help for something you didn't know. So you could stick to your core character traits and what you're good at to create something amazing and keep it going. And you did that with your friend. And it just shows, sometimes you got to give a little trust in someone else to help you succeed. And you did that. And then I guess they took a region, like you said, and expanded it. How did you get through the challenge of, because it wasn't like you had a corporate culture prior. So, and I know you said at the beginning it was easier because you could do more as you were. But what were the challenges scaling to this many stores? Because it's staggering. I mean, when you really think about it, you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
This is a staggering amount of stores with lots of people. I'm sure problems every other minute of the day. And, and that's really not where you feel your comfort zone is. So how did you build a team? What were the challenges in building a team? And give everyone insights to that.
I can't count it on my fingers and toes, what the challenges are as you get bigger and you start franchising more and more. But I think the biggest key, and we keep harping on this right now, is as I grew, I kept bringing more people into this organization, from consultants to a private equity firm that helped me build the team even stronger than what we were, because it was more of the back end at that point. You use the word corporate, just like franchising. I was like, oh, corporate, big bad word. I don't want Pliables to ever be a corporation. And I still don't think it is, but we had to inject some corporization into Pliables. Because if you didn't do that, and what I mean by that, I'm looking at one of my stores right now, and none of our customers feel that type of corporization. I was very steadfast with that with my new partners. The 4 walls can't change in here. But the back end, the infrastructure, setting up, the financing department, setting up the HR, setting up all these things that we were, I'll call it what it was before the private equity firms came, a little lackluster in. I recognized that from a mile away. I saw a new challenge, a new horizon coming. I'm like, yo, we need to bring some people that have a lot more experience in this world to make sure that we're protected. Could I have done it myself without them? I ask myself that every single morning, but I don't think about it too long because I'm happy where it's at right now. Because again, my customers haven't felt the changes of corporatization. We're more protected, we're stronger, and we now have the ability to go from 280 locations to hopefully 1,000 one day.
All right, so there you go. You're on this path. You know, you weren't afraid to both you and Abby on like what you needed to do to make you better. But then there's now growing a brand that you don't really touch every day. So how do you ensure Playa Bowls remains innovative? How do you make sure the culture is consistent since you're in so many places that you can't be at once?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question for me. About 4 years ago when we were at 180 to 200 locations, where I started seeing it getting out of my control a little bit, where Rob couldn't be everywhere, my partners couldn't be everywhere. We used tools and resources, things like Group Me, where I would have every single employee across the all the stores that we had. And again, I was up till probably 2 in the morning. I was playing trivia with every single store. I was getting them excited. I was learning about my employees, what colleges they were going to, what inspired them to work at Pliables. And like, I kind of kept feeding off that nonstop. And, the Group Me's, honestly, that probably took up about probably 8 hours of my day every single day, but it was important to me. And I had fun watching the employees get like super psyched about like, oh, Rob's in here. And they got like, you see them, you felt them getting excited through this group chat. So that's how I kept the culture going with all the employees. And when I talk about the store employees and the mid management, again, I started giving incentivization packages. We started, getting them more involved with the innovation of Pliables. They were always were, but again, as we grew the mid management team, everybody's involvement was extremely important.
It's one thing to create what you've created. It's another thing to keep it going. There's so many new brands coming, different tastes, cultures, products. How do you stay innovative when it comes to the product, right? Like, how do you keep something fresh and new? I know your stores when you walk in, and every new one's even cooler. The one in Woodbridge, I know you didn't open too long ago. It's like you walk in, you just want to hang out. It's like you said, like a Starbucks. Like you feel something when you walk into your stores, but you still got to get people to want to come back and eat something every day. How do you stay innovative with the product?
Well, I think that's the $1 million question, right? And I got to stick to what my gut tells me, and I communicate this to my new partners. I communicate this to the new team, where it's like, my philosophy is stick to what you know you're good at. And right now we're an acai bowl shop. We do smoothie bowls, we do juices, we do oatmeal bowls. And I think there is so much more room for improvement and innovation within what we already do. So like, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I every day wake up and I've got a friend, a family member, somebody who I met, and they're like, "Hey, have you ever thought about, putting this into your store or doing this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have, but for me, the philosophy is if you do that, it starts detracting from what your attention should be." I had a good friend of mine, like a mentor, that always said, like, like when the horses, they go out and they race, they get the blinders on. When they break out that gate, they don't want to look left or right because they're going to lose a millisecond and lose the race. And I've held true to that, as long as I possibly can, go and just look forward. This is a race and we're going to get to the end. What the end is, I don't know, but I know I'm not there yet.
No, listen, it's got to be hard. I mean, I'm sure you get so many inbound requests from your franchisees, right? Because everybody wants to make more revenue, and I think sticking to your knitting and to your focus is why most brands have stayed to the length of time that they've stayed. But you started out in the healthy. How am I going to give a healthy choice? How do you see the role of healthy eating evolving actually in the fast casual industry? Is there going to be things that are going to be challenges moving forward? The more we learn and the more we see how important that is as a society, and we're living older, right? We're getting
I can't,
older.
yeah, well, I can't give you all my secrets. No.
I love that. I love that.
I
You
can't.
shouldn't.
But no, to be honest with you, I mean, listen, the health foods industry right now, I don't know the exact numbers. I read reports. I mean, it's growing. These, again, Gen Zs, even, the millennials in their 30s, like, they want to be healthier. And I think we were at in the very beginning of it, and we had ingredients in our acai that, maybe in the beginning I modified it to make it a better, healthier ingredient. We use better proteins, we use collagen peptides. There's different things that work for everybody so differently. Like, it's funny. when you come to Pliables, again, a lot of the so-called haters in the beginning were like, "Oh, Pliables is filled with sugar and it's fattening for you." And I tell people that the lowdown on it and what the calorie breakdown is and the sugar, and educate them a little bit more. They get it to the point where it's like you can't sit in your couch and eat 10 Pliables a day and wonder, why am I not losing any weight, or why am I not getting healthier? Like, this was built for two things, right? And it might be more than two things, but two things that pop into my mind right now. It was for healthy, active people, or even people that wanted to be healthier and active. You eat this before you worked out. You eat it as a post workout. So that was important too. And the other thing for me was, this was never considered a health food cafe. It was a healthier food cafe, to where, like, my nephews were 16, 17 years old. They used to visit me at the Jersey Shore. I'd wake up in the morning. They were up till 3 in the morning down in my basement, like, playing video games. And there was Taco Bell wrappers, McDonald's wrappers everywhere. And I'm like, this is insanity. And they're 16, 17 years old. And once now, my nephews, they're eating Pliables. I mean, are they still eating Taco Bell and McDonald's? Probably. But this was more like a gateway for them to get into healthier, conscious eating. And that's where it started with the younger generation. But now I see it happening to people my age, in their 40s, 50s. So I think that's important to understand about Pliables. But to answer your question, John, what's the next step? Yes, the health food industry is growing. Right now, again, like I said earlier, it's just about improving our products and putting better ingredients in them all the time. Wendy's reinvented themselves with better ingredients, never frozen meat. We can get better in our stores. We're not perfect yet, and I think that's what's going to, really lead us through the charge. And who knows, if some cool concept comes around and I can recommend it to my partners and team that I think is going to be the next thing that fits with us, then certainly we can do it. But right now, we're just sticking to what we're good at.
I love it. And then, another thing that in any scaled growth mindset that company, you got to create like a path, like an upward mobility path. What has been the challenge with your growth, being that it's franchise, and then there has to be a corporate, right? A corporization, you said, to grow and to serve, right? Not just the customers, but I think your main customers, your franchise, partners, right? How did you create the ability for people to feel this could be a career? Because I know at the beginning, right, it started out and there, it's a great entry level job, right? When you're a younger person, to go work at a great brand and learn how to deal with people and have conversations and learn all the business, important stuff that you need to know. How did you create that?
I think it happened. Not think. I know it happened naturally. Like a economy of scale. The bigger that we got, the bigger we needed our corporate team to be. And you've got a lot of employees that, again, love Pliables so much, and just like everything else in life. And to be more of a teacher now, it's like the harder you work, the better you get. The more you'll grow within an organization. And the numbers that Pliables is doing right now, it's a big corporation, and there are tons of opportunities within Pliables, from marketing to HR to operations to finance to event planning to technology. The list goes on and on and on. And I think that's key for the managerial team right now, and the ownership of Pliables, to once again educate these kids. That's what we have to do, right? Like when I was in high school and college, like I didn't know that taxes were taken out of my paycheck. So when I got my first paycheck up at Seaside Heights Boardwalk, and I was like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, the government takes that much? And that still happens with our employees. Like, they don't understand that. And that was up to us as their bosses to be good bosses to them, to educate them on how to know where the taxes are being taken out, where their tips are going, the cash versus their, credit card tips. And I think they appreciate that. And telling them in a way that doesn't make them feel, I guess, stupid, or just like, So I think that's the key.
No, you can't learn unless someone is teaching you, right? So I think it's and what's so nice is like you have such a molding ability for the youth coming into the workforce, right? Because like that's their first job. Like you're a lot of people's first job, first experience with dealing with people, companies. So the more exciting and helpful you make it, which you have, which is why you're growing so strong and rapidly. But there was bumps in the road, and it's years now, and it's stemmed other issues. But from COVID on, supply chain, prices, what has been your challenge to keep going at the pace you've been going with all the changes since then?
Bro, it's like you wake up in the morning, and I know it in my heart that nothing is ever going to be easy. The bigger we get, the harder it's getting. Even for me personally, as a partner now in working with private equity firms and relationships and contract negotiations, every day is harder. Like you sit there and you're like, oh man, I made it. Things are good. I'm on easy street. Things are in a coast. That is a fallacy that does not exist. It is every day is challenging. But from the pliables business, bro, we got smacked with COVID. We got smacked with the pandemic. And we sat there and I took my team from my military background again, not to bore with the details of the story, but like I knew we were in trouble. And I sat there and I said, we're not going to be that business that makes excuses because of the pandemic. We're going to do things the way that I know how to do it, which is grind. So, we incentivized our employees to come to work, incentivize them. And it forced them as a volunteer program. Or like in my mind, when I was, shipped overseas for Air Force, we got hazard pay. And I never called it hazard pay when they came to work. We just said, if you want to come to work and you feel safe, we'll pay you X amount to come in and work at our pliables. Every employee raised their hand. I said, yep, absolutely. They came in, we wore a mask, we did everything sanitary-wise. The customers picked up the bowls at the doors. They didn't come in the stores, so on and so forth. But, more importantly, I knew that we were going to lose business within our four walls, and that was an opportunity to strike on third-party delivery, to strike on family packages, where the kids can stay home from school, and people were miserable at the time, like, and bring them do-it-yourself kits at their house. Where now the kids were at home building bowls with their mom, their dad, and it really jumped off. So I guess the point is that was the first smackdown that we had was the pandemic. We fought through it. We actually came out as one of the top fast casual restaurants that I would say beat the pandemic from an economic standpoint. And then from a broader, spectrum right now, as you get bigger and we start going across the country, supply chain is extremely difficult. You know, when it was in my backyard and I developed relationships with my my distributor, my manufacturer, we had to unlock here. But the further we started going west, north, south of Florida, it started getting more challenging. We had to start incorporating real corporation into our business, Cisco. So it got challenging, but again, I kind of tie this all together. I brought my private equity firm in. The managerial team that we have right now, they have the experience to know how to do that and manage it right now. I did not have the experience or the know how to do it, and we would have lost a lot of ground. So we kept our momentum going with a team that I built going forward right now, and that's why we're at right now.
It's amazing. But the things you do know, you were amazing at, both you and Abby, and like social media, Instagram. What kind of a role do you think? Because we hear about it, everyone everyone says it works, but like how well did it work, and what were the issues learning how to be someone good on social media as a brand?
I mean, social media has changed so much in 10 years. I mean, from a business standpoint too. I mean, we I don't want to say took advantage of social media in the beginning, but we did, for lack of better words, where like Instagram and Facebook, they weren't charging for ads at that point. It was a completely different ballgame. You open up social media now, you scroll in your story, like every other story is an ad, and they're targeting you. They hear you talk, and we all know that's going on right now. That's not the way it was 10 years ago. It was, there were hashtags, and there were certain people within your area, and you kind of had to be crafty and gritty and kind of, jump into these groups to bring their eyes and their attention to your Pliables page. And that's what I did religiously. Like I said earlier on this podcast, till 3, 4 in the morning, kids were at DJs till, 2 in the morning, getting drunk. And I was targeting them myself, not through a bot, not through any sort of, developer, and finding the hashtags of them putting like hashtags DJs. And I would follow them. I would like all their content. And then they would follow us back. And it just grew naturally, organically. So I think the challenge of social media now is it is extremely difficult to grow it organically. It's almost to the point where like you have to pay to play at this point. And I will fully admit in this podcast, the marketing sector, that's why I have a great marketing team right now at Pliables that have experience in these technological advancements in social media. They know how to manage that. I would not know how to do that for the slightest bit right now.
And if you could pick one influencer that was the epitome of the Playa Bowls brand, or that you'd want to work with, like who would that be?
I mean, that's a layup. I mean, Kelly Slater. I mean, you're talking about like the GOAT of surfing. This guy that has, he's in his 50s now. He has more world championships in surfing than any other surfer. He's a legend. So like, And trust me, I targeted him too at that time. I was just sending him messages like, "Yo, Kelly, it's Rob from Pliables." I didn't get a response, but you know, that's a good segue though for me to talk about like influencers, because there is no one specific influencer that I can target and say, "Oh, that's who I really think epitomizes Pliables." I think we did a great job over the 10 years of, again, organically not paying influencers to love Pliables. I mean, I think her name is Lindsay Dunn. Pretty sure she's a gymnast from LSU. And now that new regulation just came out for the NCAA, where you can pay these employees to, advertise as an athlete. I think she makes millions of dollars now off of doing this. She is naturally and organically doing it for us on her social media platform, on her Instagram, where she's going to Pliables at LSU and she's eating Pliables. And you want to talk about a win beyond a win for us? And she's probably the biggest example I have, but I do see it happening a lot now with football players, basketball players, baseball players, actresses, and they're putting it on their social media just organically because they truly do love it. Which goes back to our first 5 minutes of this: authenticity. Nobody's getting paid at Pliables to be a social media influencer for us right now, and I'm proud of that.
That's interesting because it's really, that's not the game today. So you're bucking the trend, and again, I think, like you said, authenticity is just built in you and your team's everything.
Yeah.
So last couple questions, and I think they're good ones because they're reflection questions. Like, were there any risks you regret not taking? Like, that's my first question to you.
Risks? I
Any
mean,
risk you regret not taking?
if I know right off the bat what I want to say, but it's kind of hypocritical because I did make a good success off of this decision, which is selling my company a couple of years ago to bring partners in. But through this podcast, I've talked about the pros the entire time of bringing them and what they've done. But in the back of my mind, looking at a guy like Peter Cancro from Jersey Mike's or Danny Myers, Shake Shack, like, could I have kept going myself and brought this company to where it is today without that? I'll never know that answer, but I'm not going to say I regret the decision I made, but it's certainly one that lingers on the top of my mind every single day.
Well, you're an entrepreneur, and it's in every entrepreneur's mind. So I love your answer, and it's respectful, because what I've learned from you even more on this podcast is you know what you can and cannot do, and you're not afraid to ask for help, which I think is like a superpower. The last question: is there any particular person, event, but I'd rather it be a person that significantly changed your perspective in life?
Yeah, Larry Hess. He was one of my good friends. He was one of my landlords in Bayhead. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but him and his wife, again, talking about being given opportunities by people that are stronger in business than you are. Larry was super important to me. I mean, whenever I had an issue or a problem, he's the first guy that I ran to him. Whatever he said, I did, and it worked out. And what I love most about Larry and Christine, this cute store that we have in Bayhead. Larry's got this big restaurant called Charlie's right across the waterway in Bayhead, and he used to sit through the window at the Playa Bowl, which is like the pink sweetie that we have. I'm not gonna lie, mostly females eat that, but Larry loved it more than anything. I'd watch it with like a big, pink ring around his lips, just give me the thumbs up from his window because he loved Pliable so much. But he was instrumental of really getting over the hump. I think Bayhead was our store number 4 or 5, and things were getting challenging at that point because now, we were signing real leases. Pure Village in Long Branch through the Kushner family was a big deal lease. I mean, that was, hey, we're getting into a 5-year contract. Your rent is X amount per month. I was scared, but I talked to guys like Larry Hess. They kind of held my hand through the process to guide me in the right decision making and negotiation with these powerful guys.
There you go, using your superpower, getting people to believe in what you're doing and help you. And that's why this is just going to keep going. And however you're involved, you and Abby are legendary. You're always going to be legendary. And when just keep moving and keep growing. And I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, John. This was really cool. Obviously I love talking about Pliables, and let's do it again.
You got it. Hi, John Schultz here. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Looking forward to being with you soon.